Thank you very much, Professor Balducci and Professor Cuffey. So now, as promised, I invite everyone to, how should we do this? We've got quite a few more than last time, which is a really good thing. I'm really happy to see so many people sticking around. I know Kurt needs to get rolling. So thank you, Kurt.
My concluding message is there's nothing you can do to stop the inflation processes.
Understood.
Unless they come up with something really
fun. All right. Thank you. Well, and that's what radical collective intelligence will do. So emphasis on his final 6 words there. Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. All right. So what I'd like to do is kind of, essentially form a circle. Yeah, right. And I'm going to ask for my friend Peter Melton to come up and join me and kind of help coordinate. He's really good at that sort of thing.
What do we just do here?
Should we just
there are a couple tables and we'll circle there.
Okay. Is that all right? Let's do it. Peter, do you want to get rid of the tables, Peter?
I'm going to move a couple tables to the side.
Okay.
And Janet.
Yeah, why don't we move this table back here, and that'll make some room for the other table. Slide this back. Out of the way. Make some more room. Thank you.
Jimmy,
yes,
you should.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
So that everybody can see everybody.
All right. Good. Okay. Sure. Yeah. No problem.
Make an extra one there.
I'm good. I put chairs with.
You could even back up a little here to make it more of a circle. Good. Very good. Anyone's in here, Matt? Okay. Great. All right. This is what I'm talking about. This is collective intelligence. So I would just really like to open it up and just give everyone a chance to talk. I mean, we're in a crisis right now. We're in an existential crisis. Things have never been worse, and things are getting worse and worse every day at an accelerating rate. So, as I mentioned, the governments of the world are asleep at the wheel with a few positive bright lights, notably the president of Finland speaking out. But he's speaking. That's the beginning. That stimulates conversation. What we need is a lot more of this at a local level all around the world. So we have an opportunity to take the lead and set an example for the rest of the world. The San Francisco Bay Area is the land of revolutions. The free speech revolution, the free speech movement, the computer revolution, right? Ending persecution of gays, of gays and lesbians, right? The rights of to love and marry whoever you want. Look at all the ways in the anti-war movement. This is the land of revolution. And I posit to you that we of the San Francisco Bay Area, I was born and raised here, we, the Bay Area, have largely gone quiet, right? We've kind of calmed down a bit when the world needs us the most to lead this revolution in transforming our planet, transforming our footprint, transforming the way humanity walks the earth. So I posit to you, this can be the beginning. Let this be the beginning. And let the John Muir series, let the Sierra Club dinners be a leader, not just of the Bay Area, but ultimately of the world. If we don't do this, who will? NASCAR? The KKK? I mean, think about it. Who is going to lead the transformation? So, thoughts, ideas?
Well, I'd say a lot is going on here already.
Yes.
And I'll mention that we are doing a conference in the first week in May in the Mission District. It's the founders of SoCap, some of you know this, Social Capital Markets, and some other people, myself, Federation, and several hundred people who are leaders in the general movement, which is just beginning to take on momentum, and I think the Bay Area is absolutely hubs. And Magenta here is also doing a tremendous conference in September on this at the Expo West Natural Products meeting. And it's basically how we go beyond sustainable regeneration of natural systems, including things like soil carbon sequestration. I understand the problem with trees, although I think planting trees are some value in a biodiverse perennial ecosystem. So that's one of the things we're looking at is drawdown strategy. And I'm finding that it's a global movement. It's a hotbed. Nobody's heard of it very much yet, but will within the next year, again, beyond sustainability. So I would invite everybody to come to the conference, which is regen18.com. That also goes to Magenta's conference, Bloom Network, and keep your eyes, keep and your ears open, because this is going to be the biggest movement to hit the transformational, planetary transformation movement for a long time. And it's well underway.
Now, does contemplate, or what is its interaction with refreezing the Arctic, if any?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of been alluded to here times. I mean, it's a squeeze play. We have to get to zero carbon renewable, and we have to begin to draw down of excess carbon in the atmosphere. Will that refreeze colleges? There isn't a lot left to us unless we want to do massive geoengineering. I'm not personally. That's the emergency report, maybe, get ice nine and do that. Who knows what will happen? So I think we have natural processes. And basically, there's I'm forgetting his name, but there is some economist at Stanford saying that, we kind of hit the asymptotic, we're about to hit the asymptotic moment. Renewables, we kind of, in a way, we've solved it. And would intend to be $40 trillion in stranded assets from the carbon economy, and that will be almost mooted. But then we have to begin the regenerative economy, to go from degenerative to regenerative. It's going to be our challenge. And I love that sentence. Same.
Can we expand the circle? There's some people not included.
Yeah. So yeah, let's push back. Let's get this table out of here. Let's just everyone can, and then we thanks everybody. Just gotta push back this one. little bit more there. Yeah. Paul?
You probably know the question presented tonight. I have not read anything about the extent of what you explained anywhere, in literature or in lay books or anything. Is that widely known? I mean, to me, you've got to present something like to get this information out to the wide public in the United States.
I've written 14 books so far. I'm not sure where you want me to start.
But
How widely known is it? Well, when the president of Finland presents at a joint press conference in the White House and on it, I think that's the information that at least is widely available.
Yeah.
It's not as if anybody's hiding anything.
No,
The information on Arctic ice is from the National Snow and Ice Data Center and NASA. There's all kinds of places you can go to find the information a lot more. But there's no incentive for governments or corporations to tell you the full effects of the loss of sea ice in the Arctic.
Nor for the media.
Right.
It's not news any of us want to hear. So
Right.
They don't report it.
Exactly. So it's massively underreported, but you can find it if you want. You know, the president of Finland, unfortunately an unpronounceable last name, is going around the world talking about the consequences of an ice-free Arctic in the near term. Everywhere he goes. And it's cracking the mainstream, it's cracking the corporate media, but it's not anything anybody wants to hear, and the news cycle is 2 or 3 seconds, so it doesn't stay afloat very long.
We've seen social media and all the youth that are, very poorly represented here. There's got to be a groundswell that has to rise, and it seems like the message, we've got to rethink how this whole message, so much of it is really going to be kind of like a marketing, public relations, social media that just has to be a groundswell. I don't know what the answer is, but I think the way it's been messaged so far, besides the little things that I've been going to, it's always so kind of cerebral and complex, and I understand it, and I appreciate that, but we're never going to get the message to the audience. We need to vote in certain ways.
I
We
can
need to
help.
start, I'm sorry?
I can help there.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's, look, my daughter could probably help you.
My cousin is Ty Cobb, who's Donald Trump's personal lawyer in the White House. So I'm going to help spread this message. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, lately I've heard a lot of talks and articles about how do we communicate climate change or what climate change and change the messages and stuff like that. And I just think that we don't hear it. So it doesn't matter. I mean, my personal opinion is that it doesn't really. I mean, you can paint whatever picture you want, but if you don't want to look at it, and like also when we hear 2 degrees, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for me here? I don't care about 2 degrees, but if you're telling me that my house is going to be underwater, then we have a problem, right? So, is anybody actually saying in the media like what really is going to happen? And there've been a couple articles that I've read about, like the headline of that research of biological annihilation and stuff like that. But who else is saying that? Like, if people are told the world's going to end, are people going to react, or are they going to ignore it? Or I just don't think that we, as a society, really care.
It's almost like you have to go about it like a business goes about marketing something. Like, instead of focusing, find out what is their, for different age groups, and what is it that rings the bell for them? Like, what is the story that, how is it going to,
Doom doesn't sell very well yet, so I think it's, are there, and I'd ask the professorial contingent, are there radical solutions? Can you
Right.
foresee, let's say the society, they will mobilize in some idea of the world. What is this? Because if we can't present that.
I just to try to answer your question. I teach an environmental science major and our students have to do a honors thesis. And the thing that did impress me was hope. My generation has mostly been trying to observe what's going on and report, measure it, quantify it, kind of tell society what's going on. All these students were actually coming up with trying solutions. Many of them were trying to think about smart grids, better energy systems, using tidal energy. And so I was coming away hopeful, actually, that they are starting to mobilize and bring together some of these skills. Let's hope.
Can we do it in a year?
That's part of the message I guess I was trying to say with my own talk is that with natural ecosystems, these things are slow processes. They're persistent. Like this Delta problem, it took us 100 years to get into this problem. It's going to take us 100 years to build back the carbon. So I think we can't have instant gratification and expect things to happen instantly because there's these laws of physics and laws of ecology that got us in this mess, and we have to work with them to get us out of it.
Is there anybody here who has experience dealing with people who have chronic
Who have what?
dealing like so
Terminal
illness? Yeah. So I mean, I guess I wonder if there are ways you guys have communicating with people who don't see themselves ready to accept where they're going, but would need to, at, you know, some kind of efficient pace in order to go.
I have some experience with my wife.
A little louder, please.
I have some personal experience with my wife because I essentially freaked out about climate change several years ago and almost lost my marriage. And through support with an online group, I received some advice, which was don't push it. That I think that contributed largely to saving my marriage. I didn't push it. Got to a point where everybody has to take in.
But you see what I'm asking is,
Well, it's
in terms of like
information to deal with.
right? No, it is, and I'm not,
Your
and
own
I'm,
death.
and I'm not, belittling. I'm just saying, like, in terms of the context we're at now, where we're talking about wanting to communicate. Why aren't people, you know, ready to receive this, or what way will they be ready to receive it? And I guess it seems like the parallel would be someone who firmly
Kind of talking about the stage of grief.
Yeah.
And the first stage of grief is denial.
and the second
Is
oh, anger, learning. So I hear that a lot.
So what I'm hearing is basically that not everyone is aware, there's a lot of anger because of what they lose. But at the same time, the species of this problem is the human being. And psychology has to be thought about because the works has to be addressed. Whether it's through marketing or Coca-Cola throughout the world, that this message has to go out. And whether it's implemented with some psychological nuances, hidden messages, or whatever it takes, we have to figure that out so that everybody will know. And then on top of that, we have to weigh a system that might be able to materialize a value, a certain value, so that this monetary and psychological message sort of merge. Because if it doesn't sink into the Homo sapien, the rest of the species, we really need to address our species first before we go any further. This has to be done fairly quickly.
Your point's right on. We had a seminar series on environmental psychologists to Cal to lecture. One fellow was from Yale and the other fellow was from Michigan. And up until now, my wife and I have these all discussions, we aren't communicating. I think in some respects we are, but the psychologists were essentially telling us that their worldview challenged. And no matter how much information you give them, they won't change. So we got the adult market as well as Coca-Cola. These are some nerd scientists getting up there, like to a small group. So now with the Koch brothers and large groups that have billions of dollars. And so I think political will take people.
But it's also like that, like the quote that gave at the beginning of the Einstein.
Yeah.
Solve the problem, the same mindset that we did. Like, also not only have a lot of grief, but a lot of guilt, like you said. Doing it is, I don't know if you think it's possible to.
You guys are being very, very thoughtful. I'm very impressed with what I'm hearing. I think, you have to be grassroots out there. You guys have the ability to do so. Fascinating.
I really appreciate all these different perspectives, and I believe that, at least in my of working as an environmental educator in so many different environments, particularly noticing the contrasting capacity for opening up or even to engage in conversations about these issues differ so vastly in different socioeconomic spheres. And so when we're in situations where there's great deprivation and hardship, let's talk about being in Egypt, my experience in Egypt, or, and this was some years ago, or in when there's there are children that are selling chewing gum and bottled water because that may be the only way that they can bring home a few cents or a dollar. And yet the plastic ends up, well, you know where plastic goes and you know where it comes from. Now, how can we shift the focus from the survival and, oh, but this, and anyone who's ever seen any images, that same mouthpiece of the consumer has been broadcasting, oh, our bottled water and this bottled water and that bottled water. Well, they're not saying we happen to have stolen that from the aquifers and the groundwater and forests of California and other countries. So each time we look at how can we communicate, how can we reach people, how can we engage people, how can we invite people into conversation, I think every different environment calls for a very personalized and holistic conversation, really taking into consideration the real factors that people are living with on the ground, whether it's in the Amazon or in Egypt or in New York City or in the ghetto in Brussels. You know, I lived and worked in Belgium for many years, and attempting to bring people to that place of understanding and be motivated to do something about our core issues, our common issues, our shared common ground. It's a really big work. It is possible, but it does require an approach that comes in so many different angles. I believe it is about bringing together the scientists and the designers and the communicators and the psychologists and really weaving to an approach that potentially reach and achieve the goal that we aspire to, which is to mobilize a will to respond and engage and to help build people. Excuse me?
Government to serve us. You
Well, but then some governments might just be destroying clean air and water acts and maybe some governments are bought out by certain interests, and so I believe what Jamen is saying us to do is to stop looking for the government to lead the way, change, and to our own communities and beyond, and ignite these conversations and bring people together. Maybe at first it's 2 people or 3 people, 4 people, but eventually each one of them can bring rays of light and communication out into other places where maybe there's little or no understanding. But if we could just imagine that every single person has something to bring to the conversation, and really believe that, and welcome that, then they have a chance. These other can unite our voices and our visions and our hopes, but also to have an opportunity to grieve and to process the grief, the very real and sometimes palpable grief. Because until we are willing to face that and address the energy involved in kind of holding it back and pretending it's all fine and just going on about business. So a lot of energy is squandered in the process.
Yeah, like when we like hearing you and people talk about solutions, like what's going in the back of my head is like, wow, goes extinct, I care about my family, and when they go extinct, I care about how I'm going to live the rest of my life, with knowledge, how long that's going to take. So really like a message as an individual, what can you do and how do you process this information? Because I think, at least for me, I see the problem that is so beyond the solution that in a short amount of time that I just want to make peace in the world with myself and my family. And, I did tell some of my family members, but it didn't go well. But then also I'm thinking now, man, should I have done that? And like,
well, what if you hadn't? And they woke up tomorrow and Papa didn't tell us the truth.
No, yeah, and I definitely went through that as well. But now I see the situation being so dire that it's like, I don't know, like the question that if, how much should I just say prepare for an emergency or the world's gonna end?
Or how can we engage in building on solutions? Because
that's not my thing.
But you care about your family and you want to live well with your family while you have time.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that's like taking it from like an individual to like a level society solution.
Did you find that your family did not want to hear it, or like, why did you tell me this, or you said it didn't go well? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, when I first found out about it, I was to the guy, I thought he was crazy. So, but I did a lot of research, and I was like, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. And what I did is I did a bunch of research. I did PowerPoint. This is what's happening. This is kind of where we are, and I shared that with my family. And
that's why you're here alone tonight.
And that's why I'm here all the time. Yeah. And I told my wife, hey, I'm coming here. He's like, I hate that guy. Why? Because it changed my life. That's why. So, but it was good because I learned about climate science. But I learned that also, time is short. And I talked to my mom, and everybody was really nervous. Don't tell your mom because she's gonna freak out. And my mom was like, I know this is happening. Just look at the news. She watches news in Spanish.
People know.
Mainstream U.S. news.
They don't want to acknowledge it, but they know.
Exactly. So that I did get some pushback, and then they're like, "Oh, well, they're just having a mental health issue. You're not, this is not how things."
And that's what I experienced as well. That's why I was curious. I mean, shared information with a family member who went into a deep depression. You know, it's like, why did you tell me that? And so that is something I think that bears discussion as well. And I know that's something that you're talking about is that's a component, I believe, as well. So I'd love to hear thoughts on that, because how many have shared it with a friend or family member and experienced that?
In a nutshell story, I revisited my student co-op. I was a graduate at Cal. Student co-op came in and joined the dinner, and the undergraduates were sharing their majors, and one of them said environmental something. But I wasn't sure what that major was. Is that basically looking into ways to fix the environment? She said, yeah, that's something like that. And I had a pause of like whether I should ask or not, but I asked her, how's your spirit? And she had a pause and she went, what do you mean? And another guy next to her said, he means we fucked up the planet. So right there with this group of young people, there was both ends of the spectrum, and they were living together. And I don't think the information's out there. Places. Whatever their circumstances, take it in. And,
It's just an example that that person comes out and said, how's your spirit? Which is another aspect of something I just thought of. All religions try to reach individuals at the soul level, at the essence of your spirit. And of course, you always have atheists that don't believe. That's one way of viewing this situation that we're in. But if we touch the very essence of that person's, or use the same method that religions use to create a conviction into that psychology within the theology realm of whatever religion it was, you probably can gain a lot of room into a lot of people's soul, spirit. This is a human problem. We have to look at it from the human, what motivates humanity, whether it be religion, money, try to merge all these things together to come up with a solution. Because the simplest thing to do is to convince humanity to not pollute anymore, or push industry to listen to the consumers. I know it's a bit far-fetched, and it might take a very long time to do that, but I don't know, that was just a thought.
Brings up the question of how much time does humanity have, and how pervasive is the view of science and of your point of view about the scenario you presented. You're going to have to get a coalition of informed scientists behind you, and they have to come up with the clarion call that this is a scientific existential problem.
It's already there.
And
Yeah,
It's there.
It's already there.
They have the letter for
I
humanity.
actually heard what Kirsten said today.
Yeah, no,
Did I get a consensus on that?
How do you cut through the disinformation?
I hadn't heard it before. I'm not informed as an individual. I'm interested in global warming and have been for a long time. But I have not read the scenario you presented today that pointed it out so direly.
The question though is, how do you cut through the disinformation? Okay? The question is, how do you cut through all the crap? How do you cut through the media crap, the sports, the music, everything that distracts people from this issue?
You have to get a coalition of people who are admired in the society to get behind it. And that means it's got to be published. They have to have credentials. I mean, you and I aren't going to do it because nobody's going to give you any credence.
I may.
You know? They may use it, but they won't be. You know, you've got to have people of substance on paper, whatever,
I am living my life as art. I am giving away everything I own.
That won't be enough.
It may not be,
It'll
but
help
if
you, and
people
it'll
jump
help
on
society,
board, it
but
may
it's not
be.
enough. And we've got to educate people that can broadcast this, so, the body of informed scientists get behind
You know, they've been speaking out in groups for years.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is,
I think-
is changing the narrative. And this is how basically governments and the corporate overlords keep this in mind, because they control the narrative of what it is to be, what it is to be in a human society. And since the beginning of the last century, we've been programmed to be consumers. I highly recommend the Century of the Self documentary to understand the origins of consumer culture, which we are all a part of. It didn't exist before. This consumption thing, this consumer thing.
Or captains of
And we
consciousness.
have
that's
to
what we-
break out of this psychology. I feel very hopeful that a sea change in the narrative is forthcoming. It has to do with the circumstances emerging. And a good example, a hopeful example, is the recent Me Too Time's Up movement. Look at that change in the narrative. It has happened almost overnight. It's pretty dramatic. And the time right now when things are in chaos, systems breaking down, Trump phenomenon, this is when new crystals emerge. And I think this is what's going on with the climate discussion in the next couple of years.
Is that going to help the melting of Arctic ice? It's going on as we speak.
One narrative that I heard,
It's going to continue for many years.
one narrative that I heard, but one narrative that I heard that was really cool is another scientist, Kevin Anderson, giving a talk saying we've had 30 years of failure, like all the IPCC reports that all governments know, and he's just saying anyone that has white hair, dyed hair, or whatever, they all failed. We've known this has been going on. Like you were talking about the predictions since like the 70s. So it's like people know, the governments know. There's a lot of people that know what's happening, but we just haven't done any real solution.
Yeah, by 1980, I was convinced this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. I was born in '84.
And I think, excuse me, I think too that when we look at 90% of media outlets, radio and TV stations are owned by 6 corporations. Think about that. I think that's got us tied. So it's got to be a grassroots.
It has to be social media. That's the one thing that we do have where we can spread stuff, because we're not going to get this message out through.
Not through those 6 corporations, right?
They are complicit.
Because
So it
that's
has
based
to
on
be a
mobile,
social
I mean,
movement.
Westinghouse, you look at those 6
Zuckerberg will
corporations.
help with that.
Hmm?
Zuckerberg is gonna help us.
I think that the artists and musicians are really also
That's right.
capable
Important
of
voices.
bringing so many issues to the forefront and working in different genres. So reaching different groups of populations.
So here's, I mean, people in our culture are addicted to hearing. It's kind of, I wonder, does anyone else wonder if it's an aversion to fear or their own mortality or anything as much as their aversion to feeling the massive guilt that they feel by putting themselves in a realistic. I feel like, when I'm mourning the planet, I'm mourning it as like a cancer cell in the cancer that's killing the body. Very strange. And it's like a very confusing, it's not as straightforward, I think, as simply lost. I wonder if a lot of the anger that I see in people when I try to talk to them about it is an aversion to affecting myself from that.
You're saying you experience it as a cancer cell.
Yeah, I feel like I'm obviously part of what's happening, and feelings, that to be the case of myself.
Yeah.
So I guess happy that I feel like I can feel that way. But I feel like a lot of the people that haven't been able to hear this.
It's privilege.
I think,
I think in speaking to the, if I understand, can I just ask to clarify? It sounds like you're speaking to the question, is it people's fear? Is it their pain that they don't want to feel? Is it a combination of both? Is it resistance to change or anything that's a bother?
Is it feeling?
Or feeling implicated, guilt, shame?
Because that's an obvious
Or
next
all
step
of
to
the
take.
above, or all of the above. So these are very good questions, and how do we build the bridges that invite people to step through the pain, the anguish, the fear into the building?
maybe people are just busy trying to have some kind of safety, holding on to the illusion of safety, and they have to make a huge change, have to let go of all the plastic and everything is, the whole system has to change. So it's not just fear of dying.
Economy would collapse. Absolutely, absolutely.
Jump in.
Jump in.
My name is Armando Davila. Nice to meet you all. I'm around my dad, he's Robert. There's my mother, this is Cheryl. We spent the 2016 campaign cycle electioning within the city of Berkeley. And my mom won the seat for City Council District 2. We met with some people in LA a couple weeks ago. There's this word called climate mobilization, and LA in June 2017 announced a climate emergency, or basically they had a press conference with Naomi Klein and some people, and are trying to get a climate mobilization department funded. But basically, so we had this conversation, we came up with this idea, a plan strategy to have the city of Berkeley declare a climate emergency. And in that initial declaration, to include a regional call to action, and to kind of outline some of the principles of what a just but also rapid mobilization would look like. And to have the city of Berkeley functioning as a convening and organizing body to call the region together. And so we're thinking the North Bay, Sonoma, South Bay, San Francisco, pretty much all the municipalities within the greater SF Bay area. And currently we have a draft resolution for the climate emergency. We pitched it to the city manager today. City manager is down. We pitched to one other council member. The one other council member is down, Kate Harrison. And so the climate mobilization people have like a technical draft plan. It's kind of like a broad stroke skeleton. How do you do a decade transition? So that question, I'm like, is it 5 years? Is it 2 years? Is still a relevant one. And what we're imagining is that somehow between now and September, before the Climate Action Summit that Dre Brown is hosting, there would be already a decision in the Bay Area that we're in an emergency and that a rapid mobilization is necessary. And that rapid mobilization should undo the status quo of oppression that we now know. So that's one vital piece that needs labor organizing support, not just kind of dreamers and cultural political figures, but when you're talking about the speed of natural ecosystems and imminent extinction, we need some consulting on that to have that be to have this initial framing of an emergency and mobilization and as realistically framed as possible and beautifully framed. That's one major piece. The second major piece, I'm just going to talk about my insight into our planetary crisis. I was recently reading a book by Adi Da, and he was talking about basically the sum total of our tribalistic, oppositional privately angling for private gain politic that is at the root of our inability to come to terms with being already unified in a planetary system and accepting that already being unified and having natural limits requires us to cohere to a planetary ethic and protocol. And in my understanding, politically and culturally, we have like China, Russia, and the United States, all operating in systems like in paradigms of oppression and suppression. And since we're in the United States, we can kind of see, I mean, I don't know if y'all can see this, but I feel like you can see some of the cracks in the empire and a little bit of light beyond the cracks in the empire. And when I think about a kind of sentiment that is, I mean, I'm really inspired by the Buddhist heritage. I'm a meditator myself, and there's this notion of boundless inclusion. And so you like send metta, you send loving kindness to the person you hate the most. You know, and when I think about the United States right now, it's like we're dealing with Bernie Sanders had an inequality town hall. So we have like concentration of wealth, 1%. America's fucking broke, you know. White supremacy works to like keep black people down, to keep poor white people down, to keep the rich wealthy. You know, it's like you can see the like architecture of keeping the empire functioning breaking down. And I think so. One other piece to the technical transition is a massive culture shift, and a culture shift that happens in a timeline that has to do with surviving to the best if we can, or contingency plan going extinct beautifully. Even I think we should put that on the table.
Yeah.
So, you know, this piece that is more fuzzy is injecting into the culture and modeling in this like radical Bay Area way that we do. For me, it's like a shift from a justice culture to an awakening culture, where we have to acknowledge that not only is our technology, our culture, our politics, and our economy deficient, but the very cultural like soup that we swim in is also deficient. And so basically, we're trying to conceive of, you know, Berkeley hosting and convening this regional mobilization, but also a cultural revolution where we say, you know, I don't care if you're in the KKK, you know, we can all come up together. All you have to do is commit to not killing me, and you can come sit at the table. You know, like
that's a bit.
So that's great, and that's my mission. Thank you.
Awesome.
Ideas here. And your idea of the intersecting of various ideas coming from the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
Could easily begin right here.
Absolutely.
Thinking of the great country of India, which is so used to natural disasters that it will be very hard to convince a woman who every fall has her entire area buried in mud, for her to think, are they talking about another disaster? What do I care about the fact that the seas are rising? What about just maybe getting in touch with some of those wonderful, excuse me, technical, brilliant scientists down in Silicon Valley, and when some of those go home after their training here and they haven't stayed, let them spread the word a little bit and get really practical about spreading the word.
Love it.
I see this as kind of a numbers problem, that a lot of people don't understand certain numbers. If they did, that would lead them to the right policies. And I'm surprised to hear that you guys thought that the Arctic ice melting was such a big factor. But you seem to think it's a bigger factor than, say, population increasing and burning more fossil fuels, which I thought of the problem as that being the main problem. Population increasing, and we can't, it's going to be a long, slow road to catch up with solar and wind power. So the numbers are that what's the rate of population increase in the world?
how long does it take to have another billion people now? 11 point something years. Okay, so you're trying to replace fossil with solar and wind power for about 8 billion people on Earth now. You're trying to switch over for 8 billion people. In 11 years, it's going to be another billion people using all kinds of power, transportation, heat, and cooking. So it's going to be a catch-up game. It's going to be kind of a long, slow catch-up game, unless you make a big switch in construction from building housing for more people to building more solar and wind power. And that's one part. So what we need to do there is lower family size throughout the whole world, down closer to replacement value of 2 people replacing themselves. And that's happening. Well, China tried to do it, right? Only allowing 1 kid, right? Now they're starting to let some people have 2 kids. But Japan, I think, got down to 2 or less. And Western Europe, some countries are down to 2 or less. But then they start having a problem in Germany. That says we don't have enough people to pay for Social Security for the older people. We need more young workers, so we have to let a whole bunch of immigrants come in, increase the population. But okay, then the other part of the problem is people don't understand how much atmosphere there is. We're talking about the big problem is when the temperature goes up a certain amount, it's going to be a big crisis. So people don't understand that there's not that much atmosphere around the world. There's only a thin layer of atmosphere. 90% of the air goes up to 50,000 feet. 90% of the atmosphere. That's 10 miles. The next 10% goes up to about 100,000 feet. So that's pretty simple. So most of it is at 10 miles up. So you take 10 miles sideways here, maybe some places 10 miles from here, like over around Twin Peaks in San Francisco. You take that distance and stick it straight up. That's how high most of the atmosphere is. And you're talking about putting another billion people here in 11 years, burning up all kinds of fuels. How long will it take to heat up that atmosphere? And 10 miles, if you look at a model of the whole Earth, if you're out in space looking at the Earth, how high will the atmosphere stick up? Well, the diameter of the Earth is about 8,000 miles. So if you cut the Earth in half, and take a cross section of it, how high does the atmosphere stick up? 10 miles compared to 8,000. Make a fraction out of that. 10 over 8,000. What fraction is the atmosphere of the diameter of the Earth? 10 8,000ths. What does that reduce to?
A little more than 1,000.
1/800.
Yeah.
So if you globe this big around, how big is that?
Take 10, say right back there's about 10 feet on that wood. Okay, make a sphere, cut it in half, and then what's 1/800th of 10 feet? 10 feet high. So the bottom of this wood is about 10 feet. Right? More like you get the exact number. It's a little more or less than 1/8 of an inch. So the atmosphere is a thin film that sticks up about 1/8 of an inch over 10 feet of the Earth. That's what you see. If you go up in an airplane, 35,000 feet, they have to put the pressurize the cabin to breathe.
The thing is, this is like a Snickers bar. No matter how you slice it, it's bad news. It's depressing, right? And one of the things that was inspired, Mr. Davila, I didn't get your first name.
Davila Senior, Armando.
Armando. What Armando was saying inspired me because I started to see some cracks in the bad news and that, hey, there could be some light on the other side. The basic problem that I see is this is a bad news conversation, right? And I'm looking around there and I'm looking at myself and I'm just like, I'm kind of bummed out here, right? It's not really looking too good for the home team here, right? So, and we are a species that run on stories. I've heard the word narrative, Michael and Armando. narrative stories. We run on stories. We need a new story for humanity, because this story is just, it's just a tragic story, right?
It's a progress. I say you have to level up population as soon as possible and switch construction from housing for more people into.
Well, the thing is, we've known this for decades. We've known this for decades. We need to reduce population and we need to transform the way we live, right? We've known that for decades, but how do you get it to happen? See, we need a
Nature's
story.
gonna do it for us.
Pardon me?
Mother Nature's gonna do it for us.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but that's a kind of a cynical, again, it's a downer. Yeah, we're all gonna die, so yeah, we get what we
Well, not
deserve.
everybody maybe, but, the movie, what is it? Anyway, it's, where Klaatu, the professor, Klaatu, the day the earth stood still, right? And Klaatu comes down and is walking around and investigates and talking with the professor, and the professor says, give us a chance. You're talking about arcologies, right?
Yeah.
This was kind of that idea. The professor says, people only change at the precipice, right? It's going to take some significant event, more than what we've already seen, to get people to wake up.
Yeah.
And if that's, we lose a couple billion people in the next few years, that might be the wake-up call that trips the trigger.
I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get that wake-up call. I think we've been having so many calls and people are just getting normalized.
I have some insights. I'm from the Midwest, and my parents are conservative Republicans, and I ended up in that bubble that a lot of people here actually. And I find a lot of people can't. This kind of conversation is outside of the realm of any reality of thinking they ever encounter in their day-to-day life. It's like super simple agrarian or like very, very simple societies and cultures in some of these small towns in a large chunks of this country. And I find a better bridge is like they can't have that conversation with my family. And they're farmers and they're in that system of subsidized agriculture and there's Monsanto signs in their fields and that's their livelihood is all tied up with these companies and that's the only propaganda they're getting, this kind of thing. So they to talk and relate with them, like I can share my experiences, but also like give really tangible examples. Like one weird example that tends to work for people is I have this scarf that is dyed with St. John's wort, like natural fibers, natural dyes, and I explain like this is hand woven and hand dyed with plants. And somehow like that very specific example of living in a different way, and they actually touch it and you can feel it. You can feel the spirit of the St. John's wort, and it's just this lovely thing, and it's a subtle, experiential, and like very simple example inserted into the reality of like there are different ways of living that can be really fulfilling and like connecting. And some people in American culture, I think, we're in these very programmed realities that are I don't know. So sometimes this bigger picture conversation is not something that people can have, and part of the mesh of all the directions and all aspects of societies and industrialized things, and like we all have to adapt. So there's another layer of this conversation that doesn't even include this conversation, if that makes sense.
No,
I agree with you.
Magenta, I think the context is important to understand who she is, because she's a fabulous networker and has the Bloom, what's the website? BloomNetwork.org, which is getting all these holistic ideas, and it has movements around the world that are using the network. And so you're citing an example of how can I break through with just some little examples and cheat in the dam kind of thing. With that example that you're giving, like through to the more conservative mindset. I think you're kind of onto something that who you are is. I just want to point that out.
it's kind of my job to like look at the planet and the different stratas of society, different cultures, and understand that one, diagnosing the cultural things that are causing people to not be able to break out of the patterns of the system that's causing harm, and then in like very nitty-gritty detail, understand how to reach people through marketing, through live events, through coalitions, all across the country, kind of thing. Like, and it's like there, someone mentioned it is globally. There's so much solidarity and mobilization around all this stuff, and it's kind of invisible because it's really like mouth to mouth and in these like subcultures of movements and people self-organizing, and we're about to get to the point where it's more visible. And once that happens, things are going to snowball really quickly. But it's this layer that's like doesn't have access to the power structures. So like what Armando is describing, like that kind of thing is happening everywhere in the South.
Oh, can you speak a little louder, please? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I have a comment. I mean, you were absolutely right when you said that we've known about this problem for decades. I mean, Rachel Carson and her Silent Spring, that's 50 years ago.
Yeah, before I was born, over 50 years ago.
Yeah. And this is such an overwhelming problem. It's too bad that we can't get information from other countries and finding out if they're experimenting with new methods, new technologies. I like your idea about the reflecting mirrors. I thought that was pretty clever.
Thank you.
Things that we don't know about. And then how do you bring all these people together? Scientific community is going to have to stand up together on this. It's sort of like the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
Where everybody was going to die unless they stopped bickering. Too bad there isn't something like a pilot study experiment that could be done that would shake everybody up. If the ocean rises, the fish are going to die. And that's going to affect many, many industries because it's just not the fish that you eat, but the whole ecology of sea life is going to completely obliterate all sorts of other issues that I can't think of right off the top of my head. But it's too bad we can't learn what other countries are doing. You mentioned was it the Finnish people, the Norwegians, or
the president of Finland?
The Finnish people, they seem to be
The president of Finland.
proactive on this.
It's just the president of Finland.
Oh, just
Yeah, he's president of a country that most people in this country haven't even heard of.
well, it's too bad we can't learn more about what other people are doing and then consolidate with that.
I love what you're saying. See, part of it is there's just way too much information out there. There's way too many solutions, way too many ideas. And so we start to feel overwhelmed, right? And so we go home and smoke marijuana and drink and turn on Netflix, right? And kind of escape for a while. And whoever it was who mentioned, the century of the individual,
the century of the self.
The century of the self.
That talks about the origin of consumer culture through propaganda techniques combined with modern advertising. And it was Boyd's cousin that financed the whole operation that set in motion the original mass market advertising connected directly to our subconscious. It still goes on, we all laugh and think about it. That's funny the way the ads do that, but it's been going on now for several generations. And we are homo consumptus. We've become a species of consumption.
But the point I was trying to make is that we have this idea of the self, right? We could be this beautiful colony of bees where each of us is doing our part, but no, each of us we have to grok the whole of it. I have to understand, I have to read and understand everything, right? We need to be more like bees and less like humans. So, and that's why I am proposing and pushing in any ways I can. About once a week, I literally dress up as Darth Vader and show up with a giant sign, the same one that was in the ad for this dinner. Abrupt climate change is the Death Star, right? We have to break out of this notion of the individual and get to the collective. That's why I'm promoting radical collective intelligence, dressing as Darth Vader, organizing these dinners, whatever the heck it takes. But let's stop thinking that one of us has to, I have to understand it all. Oh, I have to learn about this. No. Let's figure out how we come together as a collective and become a beehive, right? That's radical collective intelligence gets us there. If anyone else has another idea how to get us there, speak up. If not, please join. Go to radish.org, sign up. We're in private beta right now, which means basically come to me if you want to be part of the original testing. Michael and I work together with a number of colleagues on this. So come to me before you leave tonight if you want to be part of the private beta. That's simple. But it has to start somewhere. This is the beginning of a beehive-like transformation. You see, we need these radical transformations that get to the roots. We've known about this since the 60s in Silent Spring, but knowing is not enough. We need to transform. We need to go from caterpillar to butterfly, from human to bee. Yes.
And we get, and obviously communication messaging is so important, but whatever message we have, there has to have some hope attached to it.
Thank you.
Something that you can jump on, that you can get actively involved, because if we just paint a picture that we're all doomed, to your point, let's just get stoned and drink and watch Netflix, and like, that's the one thing, especially if we use it today. If we're gonna get this message out, we as social media, there has to be a message of hope. Even if we somehow know maybe that it's not gonna, like maybe prepare for the worst, hope that work for the best, something like that. One thing I'm going to say to the university, I put on an evening at the Young Museum, and they had 2 panels of scientists, and they made a big point about how there's no government can do this, no company can do this, no individual can do this, but all working together to do this. So they have a whole department that is addressing every conceivable level of climate change, and they are going out, and they were telling stories, being in different countries, pulling together major business together with the universities, academia, the scientists tend to be in silos and work on their own research projects, and they're saying, get these scientists out there with the companies that have conceived profits. They're thinking you can be making money off of this. Get the government's involved and come up with the solutions. And there were people there, like there was a woman who was working, she was saying this carbon that we're dumping is astronomical, and which we heard tonight, and that you can't talk carbon neutral, you have to talk carbon negative. And she's working with the Chinese government to come up with ways to go carbon negative and create positive things out of that. And of course, isn't it nice to hear about the Chinese government who's doing that with our scientists and not our own country? But I'm just saying, there's a lot of great stuff going on around the world. There has to be, I don't know how, but there's got to be a way to get people to come together and start and networking and making it take off.
One more positive step is the 5 petroleum industry executives got together that let Chevron be the spokesman, and they all agreed that climate change was real. They had a panel of experts on one side and the oil industry on the other. Oil industry, yes, we agree. Climate change is real. That's a real breakthrough for these guys.
Yeah.
And so that's a beginning of a breakdown of that.
But they're deciding not to see.
Exactly.
Money from it.
The case is in San Francisco.
Hey, just to address what somebody else was saying, like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Drawdown, Paul Hawkins. Drawdown. Again? Paul Hawkins Drawdown.
The book called Drawdown.
Yeah, but he also has a website where he has a collection of scientists that have basically volunteered, like, I don't know, 100 or whatever, a lot of math there. And so and he wrote a book, and in the book, it's like a comprehensive global approach to different solutions from different scientists from all over the world, like one scientist, I guess the Russian scientists in the sun figured out that human science started doing damage pretty long ago. So it's been a process that human beings, it's a journey we've gone on, you know what I'm saying? We've come up to other dangerous places where we almost, went over the cliff, right? But anyway, like basically they were saying like the big animals kind of created the environment just as whales create the environment in the ocean. And by the way, if the ocean goes, we go too with it. It's not like we can afford to let the ocean go. The ocean is key critical to our survival. There's no doubt about that. And so the ocean has to be preserved for our sake. And you know, you can say that's selfish or whatever, but that's just how it is. But anyway, so as human beings, we have to learn to forgive ourselves and realize that we're really kind of a young culture and species, that we've made a lot of mistakes. And so rather than get caught up in blame or whatever, we just have to kind of like move forward. But like what she was saying is that there are a lot of people working in positive ways. It just there's a lot of people doing good things on the planet. So that should make your heart feel good because that's true. You know what I'm saying? If you don't feel it, then, and a lot of what changes is if you don't, it is subconscious in the sense that if you don't truly believe something, then emotionally you don't feel anything. So if you can see injustice and you don't feel anything, well, it's because you don't really believe it. And so the way Paul Hawken describes it in his book is social justice is very much part of global warming, right? So
One lack of social justice is.
yeah, so one of the top solutions that he found in his book with his scientists was the education of young women.
Mm-hmm.
Essential for population.
Yeah,
Education and
because
population.
that allows the woman to plan her family. And so then that's much better for the planet.
It's a great thing to cite that project because it's a great example of collective intelligence. But I met Paul Nation, he said that's exactly what it was because they engaged several hundred researchers around the world, and you say their researchers, scientists, expert resources to come up with 100 best solutions to draw down carbon in the atmosphere. So going back to Jamie's presentation, that one project was like this one little component of the large chart of taxonomies that everybody needs. So it's a perfect model of engaging collective intelligence in solving problems to inspire a lot of others, to inspire us.
What if we can't come up with it?
Well, here's the thing. Before we explore that hypothesis, I do believe we do need to give people hope. And if there's no hope, we're just going to go home and smoke and drink and watch Netflix. And we go down the tubes, we go. I think that just taking stock of what Professor McPherson, Guy, as he likes us to call him, it showed tonight, we're almost dead because of loss of Arctic ice. For me, the singular move we need to do is organize our collective intelligence and refreeze the Arctic. As we say in Spanish, a huevo! Because we don't, that basically, we gotta do it. There's no discussion about it. If we dilly-dally and don't do it, we're dead in a couple years, max-ish, okay? So we need to rally around one central thing. There's a law of the singularity. Marketing is one of the things I do. One of the laws of marketing is the law of the singular. There's a singular move. There's not like 20 choices, take your pick. There's one move that's gonna get us to break through. For me, it's pretty obvious, refreeze the Arctic. It's refreeze the Arctic or death. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
If we don't refreeze the Arctic, we're dead, right? Population, all that that's on a different time scale. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying we gotta do this first. If the house is on fire, you call 911, you get the fire department, you put out the fire. That's number one. Now, educating your kids to not play with matches, that can happen tomorrow, but right now we got to put out the fire. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Mrs.
I was
Davis.
just going to say that, the one thing of hope is to unite the people. To unite everyone to get on the same page, to solve the problems of, lack of self-love, say, homelessness, or housing. If we take all those things and try to unite to solve all those problems, climate change is going to change as well. Because those people will be happy, those people will be able to understand what's going on in the climate and be able to want to live and change their lives and everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the equation that's not really being addressed, but uniting and trying to come together to solve everyone's problem because we all have the same.
And absolutely, Mrs. Davila, that is why I don't give up on the community cafes. Even in the face of this urgent crisis, I say, let's come together, feed people. Let's break bread together, right? If we do that, look, what did we do tonight? We came together and ate together, and now we're talking. It works. Let's build a community cafe here in Berkeley. If we work together, we can do it. Really, we've got a model to fund it, provide the food, provide the space. Let's do it. You in, Armando?
Yeah, tell me more about it, but yeah.
All right, let's follow up after, and let's do a recorded video conference on it so we can share it with the world. That's the idea of collective intelligence. Conversations worth having are conversations worth sharing with the world. Radical collective intelligence lets us do that. We have conversations, we record them.
One, just to piggyback on the mom's point, is that, and one something I didn't say that I want to say earlier is that basically part of why we can't deal with something that's presented to us is because we don't think we'll endure the truth of it. And I think geopolitically, one of the things we don't think we can endure, for example, as the United States of America, is our actual global domination. You know? Our actual coup d'etats, our actual the shit we're doing, the shit we're doing all over the world. The assumption is that if everyone finds out, if we lose face, if the marketing strategy of the empire fails, America's done. And then we'll get destroyed because everyone will be like, fuck America, it's time to bomb you, your position's done, Russia's gonna take out, whatever. And I think intersectionally, if we think about, we have to, something of a message like this. No matter what, we need to air out all the shit we've been laying hidden under the pretense that we're going to choose our collective survival and abandon the past of domination and suppression as a normative, the normative goal of what a civilization is supposed to do. And I think the uniting the people, we can unite them on the city level, regional level, but we really need to aim for the planetary survival strategy. And you're talking about keeping the Arctic frozen, and in my mind, we won't get there until we won't even be able to make that choice until we really decide that we should survive together.
Yeah.
And I think that, in the next climate conference, the major one, it's the reason why we haven't been able to make that choice is political. It's industry, being let's just keep our industry in the front and da-da-da-da-da. And it's really a large thing of people, somehow the essence of the idea is there, but I think we can endure the truth of the global civilizational paradigm that we're in, expose all the bullshit for what it is, and somehow hold a container so that we can survive the massive consequences of deciding not to maintain that paradigm of geopolitical war, and the truth of all the shady ass shit we've been doing to maintain that paradigm, and choose survival, and hold our shit together to the point where we actually survive. And that's what I think is happening.
That's beautiful. I love it. That's a great starting point. Let's choose survival, but we have to choose it, or we're not going to get there.
We have to choose it together.
Yeah, choose it together.
And it takes courage to choose survival because we don't know if we're going to make it or not. So it's choosing it, but without attachment.
Beautiful extinction plan, also. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, that's something. That's something that we. I'm sorry, a little louder.
Oh no, I said there's still a lot of grieving for a lot of things in the past.
Yes. Yeah, and that's an integral part of it, as Armando was saying, is in the process of choosing it and unearthing all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff we got to deal with, a lot. And here, being Americans, we're disproportionately responsible for the mess that we've made of Mother Earth.
You see the Arctic ice all now. So what the main problems you see happening suddenly? Like,
Yeah.
Glaciers melting, the oceans rising.
Yeah.
Or the atmosphere here, you can't grow wheat.
All of the above, all the above. But just like Guy said with the analogy of the martini with a couple ice cubes, right? You keep refilling the glass with water, drinking, the ice cubes go. When the last sliver of ice is gone, boom, the temperature spikes. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see spiking temperatures, a lot more methane being released. And the 67 odd self-reinforcing feedback loops that Guy has compiled in his grand synthesis, they just go through the roof. That's what I'm saying. If we lose the Arctic, we're dead.
Crazy weather, rainfall, storm.
Exactly.
We
All the
recently
above.
had that.
Pardon me?
We recently had that, the abrupt stratus, whatever warning that happened. I mean,
Yeah.
It was a sudden,
Yeah. We're seeing the early stages of this spiking, with wildfires and hurricanes and just all the mess we've seen in the last 12 months. And this is the beginning of spring. We're in for the worst 6 months of it right ahead. These are going to be the hardest 6 months we've ever had climatologically. And in terms of impacts on food and famine and displacement. Pardon me?
If that happens, like if the ice does.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see as the role of what you're talking about, moving forward from there? Because it seems like you're talking about a lot, but it's all contingent on certain things being still viable. But if that point gets passed, I feel like maybe you have.
Yeah. I mean, all this. The more time that passes, the more urgent it becomes that we come together. And at some point, you just go over the cliff and you're in free fall, and then there's really nothing you can do but scream and pray and splat right on the valley floor below. Pardon?
Or have the beautiful extinction.
Well, part of the beautiful extinction model that we talk about on Radical Collective Intelligence on Radish is actually preemptively building some arcologies, co-locating them next to nuclear power plants, so that the people in the arcologies with all their stockpiles of food and tools and everything else, their mission is to shut down the nuclear power plant that they're co-located next to. So if we go extinct, we at least leave the planet in a state that it can potentially bounce back, even if it takes 50 million years. But if we have Fukushima times 440 nuclear power plants, we fry the atmosphere and we make life impossible. No. Look, there's a myth out there that it takes 50 years to shut down a nuclear power plant. Guy and his partner Pauline asked Ralph Nader on a panel discussion. There's a cool video of it that she sent. We'll have to post it. What's this deal about 50 years? The regulatory agencies say, well, if you turn off a nuclear plant, you got 50 years to shut it down. So they give a time frame, but it doesn't mean that it takes 50 years to shut it down. Well, no, I don't know how long it'll take, and we won't know until we turn collective intelligence onto it. Just like we saw with getting ice off the power lines, right? If your only model is to take a pole and shake the power line, it's going to take a lot of workers, a lot of money, and a lot of power lines are going to go down in the interim. What we need to do is turn our collective intelligence on it and figure out how we shut these things down very quickly. Yeah, so the radioactive materials need to be put in containment structures, right, with layers of concrete and geotextiles and whatever else so that the stuff doesn't leak out. We need to contain it, right? But how do we do that quickly? I mean, everything from just build a concrete bubble around the darn thing.
Well,
right?
excuse me, but I worked in the nuclear power industry for quite a few years and actually climbed down into the containment of a nuclear power plant before they put the fuel in. But those walls are like 12, 15 feet thick.
Yeah.
It would be very easy to tap it.
Yeah.
And fill in the voids with with some kind of material.
Yeah,
So
I saw
it's
a
practically
picture.
sitting there waiting to be done if you plan to do that.
I beg your pardon?
If you plan to shut down the plant, I
Yeah.
mean, that would probably be the first thing that you would want to tackle.
Right. So part of the, going extinct beautifully would be build these here's the thing, no one's gonna let you shut down the nuclear power plants while society is still operating, right?
Certainly.
Right? So you have to, it's like this delicate balance, right? Of, getting ready for society to collapse and then making your move, but we need to stockpile people, food, equipment, concrete, cement, whatever it takes, so that when society collapses, then we move in, poof, and shut the thing down, cap it, whatever. But we're talking about a very big project times 440 nuclear power plants, so it's going to take some planning. But for me, that's part of the contingency plan. If we don't refreeze the Arctic this summer, and we're sliding towards, total collapse of society and ecology, can we phase out gracefully with our colleges and some brave volunteers, times 440?
Wait, is this our last summer to freeze the Arctic?
Well, Guy, here's the thing. Guy's already answered this question, but I'll paraphrase. 2016 plus or minus 3 years was, a very professional analysis done by U.S. Naval Postgraduate School. The Navy's got the data because they have the submarines under the Arctic ice. They know what's going on, but I'll let Guy expand on that.
I'd say there's a 95% chance it will last.
What's that again?
I'd say there's a 95% chance we're going to lose the Arctic ice this summer.
This summer. So that's the beginning of the warming. It's going to take a while to warm up.
It's hardly the beginning. The beginning was
1750
years ago.
So we get a few years, it'll freeze a little more, and then a year where it'll freeze less.
We'll never see
The
that.
trend is no ice.
We'll never see that.
Yeah, and people track this stuff. Like you can follow scientists on Twitter that you can literally, there's websites that you can go through and literally see the extent and then also measurements or estimates of how deep the ice is. So it's like we have the information. We're looking at it to see that it's.
Russia and China are already fighting for, Russia, China, Canada is already fighting for the oil rights in the Arctic.
Minerals. The air that's melting.
A melting Arctic is really good for business.
For a really short period of time.
Exactly, but that's how we ration.
The cancer doesn't think. The cancer cells don't think. All they know how to do is eat up healthy cells and grow and spit out toxins. And that's what we're doing. Other than contexts like this. This is an anomaly. This is a beautiful anomaly. And we need to make this.
James,
Yes,
just a suggestion.
Yeah.
I think our collective intelligence started a long time ago. We already have it. We've had it for a long time, and it's the reason why there's so many of us on the planet. It's not been laser focused on specific issues.
Yeah.
It's just we're successful at growing and reproducing, and now there's a lot of us, but we've had collective intelligence. That's the main reason for our success.
Hence, I propose not more of collective intelligence, but radical collective intelligence. Collective intelligence that gets to the root of our problems and finally solves them.
Can I jump in here?
Please.
I flew out here from Lawrence, Kansas. So I'd like to chat.
Thank you.
A little bit. Oklahoma, Lawrence. Thank you. Anybody hear the story of the racist teacher during the 2016 election? The racist Kansas teacher made national news. Bringing that out here.
Just recently.
Yeah, that's me. I was framed by the people in my district, by administrators in my district. And I was defended by my cousin Todd, who is now Donald Trump's personal lawyer in the White House. And I am taking that story and attacking every institutional abuse of power I see. That's why I flew out here. I had attacked and personally named people in the district who framed me. I'm attacking everything. I donated an Allen Hauser bronze to Haskell Indian Nations University. with the idea of highlighting the disparity between the money that's coming into KU and particularly the athletic department there, and the paucity of money that we give to Native Americans, particularly after having stolen this country from. The center for Kansas University basketball team is Udoka Azubuike, and he's from Nigeria. My father established the exchange program between the University of Benin at Lagos, Nigeria, and the University of Kansas. And so I'm thinking I'm going to invite Udoka Azubuike and give him an Oboozwe that my dad brought back from Nigeria. I'm doing everything I can think of to highlight the disparity, the crap that's going on in society. I posted a 2-hour and 20-minute manifesto on YouTube, and Jamin's seen it, but
not yet, but I'll take a look. And let's engage and actually do some videos ourselves together, so that we can apply collective intelligence to this.
Yeah,
because you're a powerhouse.
We need to get this flipping message out.
Okay.
And I think social media is the way it's going to happen.
But a new kind of social media, not Facebook. Radish is Facebook without the condom.
Yeah.
You're never going to get pregnant on Facebook,
oh my God.
But you're going to get knocked up on Radish with radical revolution. That's what I'm talking about. We got to blast in. And what you're talking about is what I'm talking about. We're blasting in.
Absolutely.
We're not just being academic. Well, look at the numbers. Come on. It's time for revolution. That's what we're talking about. Radical revolution. Radical is not violent. Radical means get to the root. Radical, root, and radish all have the same Latin root. It's radix, which means root. Radical is not violent. It's to get to the root of it. Hence radical collective intelligence. We've got the raw materials all here. We just need to come together as a hive. And that's what we're doing. It's happening. Rejoice. This is just the beginning.
The intelligence that we need to tap into, I would think, would be smart people, like scientists.
That's a fallacy. We're all really smart people.
Yeah,
we just need to open up.
We need to freeze the Arctic. Some people are going to be able to figure that out.
Yes, we can.
I think if we get all these scientists, I'm proposing all the scientists get together and write all the rich guys that are willing to share their money with right causes, like Soros, Gates, and the other guy. Buffett. Get these guys, these scientists, in a big area, like commune.
Yeah.
So they're all like trading secrets. Let the intelligence behind.
So you
a real solution, not just a bunch of people like sharing recipes.
No. Here's the thing. This is the beginning of. This is the seed of a fractal, right? We're not just going to keep sharing recipes. Get together once a month and share recipes. This is the begin. This is how revolutions begin, and they don't start with the privileged, right? They start with us, the people. This is how any revolution is.
We are privileged. Are you going to give up your internet? Are you going to turn off the tap? I mean, we are ripping off the entire world. Tomorrow, I'm going to go consume 300 times as much in the way of resources as the average Ethiopian. I'm going to use about, I don't know, twice as much as the average European. But I mean, what are we talking about? What's really, here's the totally morally bankrupt future that awaits us, and that is that our imperialistic, warmongering, exploitative plutocracy of plutocratic rulers are going to keep things under control so that those of us who can afford to dine at the goddamn Berkeley Yacht Club are going to be fine, certainly for the immediate future. And I hope that Armando and his parents and you, I wish you all the success in the world, and I myself will help. But I don't know. I think the problem is really, really severe. And I don't see much of anything that's been proposed that is going to help it. The Arctic is melting. I mean, what, this summer, next year, I mean, you know, WTF?
Well, here's the thing, refreezing the Arctic is but the first step.
Well, it is perhaps the most important.
It's vital. Look, if we do that, if we can refreeze the Arctic and get the message out, this will fill the rest of humanity with hope because we were able to achieve a victory.
Well, they're already putting
How do you,
blankets on
how do
places.
you combat or rebalance or shift away from whatever everybody was doing? I kept seeing and hearing, oh, the ice challenge. I'm thinking, what is with this freaking ice challenge? All this energy going to a bunch of people throwing buckets of ice on themselves.
No one even has
It's,
that. Everyone else poured sand on their heads.
no, but I mean, just the very fact that the American public through mass media are consistently led down the blind rosy path. If you want to see real change, I'm starting to think that some of the major networks need to give up some major airtime and start air.
You're not gonna do it because they're money-making
Not willfully
machines.
they won't, but I mean, what are you going to do to reach the masses? This is really good what we're doing to
Yeah.
share this conversation.
Yeah.
But how do we take this and ripple it out? We start with the model of Berkeley. I love what you all are proposing. I'd like to help, get Santa Cruz involved. But
Look, if we put a community cafe in Berkeley and end hunger in Berkeley, eradicate hunger in Berkeley forever, you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna see poor people coming in from all around to eat in Berkeley. And that's gonna be a crisis. A lot of people are gonna be, oh my God, what's gonna happen? And how are you gonna keep all these people from flooding in? I'm saying very simple. We make community cafes in Richmond and Oakland and San Leandro. We make them everywhere. But we start here, but we've got to start. If we don't start, we're not going to get anywhere. But we've got to start, so let's put a stake in the ground. Armando, will you work with me to build a community cafe in Berkeley?
Yeah, but don't you the Arctic?
No, not yet, but yeah. No, but here's the thing. But the thing, this is building off of your point. With the community cafe, we unify people. We get people together, and we get people's attention. The media will not be able to ignore it if we eradicate hunger in the city of Berkeley forever. They will not be able to ignore that. And that's how we get the message out with something positive. And then people say, well, what was the genesis of this? Well, we said we need to refreeze the Arctic. What? Right? I'm not kidding. If the headline story is hunger is eradicated in Berkeley, what was the genesis? The imperative of refreezing the Arctic. Boom. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. So let's do it. It's not that hard.
But don't forget, you gotta keep your eye on the ball. I mean, the community
Cafe.
Cafes is a brilliant idea to get the.
All together, sorry.
To get the word out.
Yeah.
But then you gotta keep your eye on the ball. How are we going to actually make the ice cap stop melting?
Collective intelligence.
People that come to eat are not gonna be able to figure that out.
No, but the people who hear about the story of the eradication of hunger will get inspired by that and say, aha, okay, now I'm in. Now you got my attention.
Okay, but there's another factor.
Sorry, let's stay together, people. Let's stay together.
There's another factor that occurred to me.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Davila. Let's stay together. Go ahead.
Okay, it was very, I hate to use the word fashionable, but for want of a better word, very fashionable for companies to declare that they had social responsibility. And they would write into their corporate mission statements that they, on how they perform that.
Yeah.
And things like companies that grow chickens.
Yeah.
Taking them outside of the cages and let them run freely. You know, things, all sorts of different things on in that area where we can tap into those companies that are showing social responsibility and find out if they have even occurred to them to include things like anything to preserve the environment that would not make things worse, I suppose.
Yeah. The social responsibility PR that the Fortune 500 companies do, it's window dressing.
Yeah, I know.
And it's not getting to the root. So you'll notice that that the heart of the Hungerless Games is a CCC standard. The first word is certified, not window dressing, certified compassionate. And it's a radical standard that overturns the capitalistic model of hoarding. Why? Because 100% of profits go to ending hunger. And everything that the company does must be ecologically regenerative and socially transformational. So it's A+, 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 A+. If you don't have straight A+ on your report card certified, you're not CCC. If you're not CCC, the radical people of Berkeley are not going to buy your stuff. But we've got to start it with one community cafe eradicating hunger in Berkeley. Period.
What's part two?
Part two is the news cycle, right? Because again, we eradicate hunger in Berkeley. People are streaming in from Richmond and Oakland. What's going on? What's going on? People are chowing down and talking and building community, and there's love and happiness and hope. Part two is, well, what was the genesis of all? Well, we were at the East Bay Sierra Club dinner, and Guy McPherson told us that if we lose the Arctic, we're all dead. And so he said, let's do something about it. Let's eradicate hunger in Berkeley and start a movement, a mass popular movement. Not a bunch of intellectuals sitting around, privileged intellectuals chowing down in the Berkeley Yacht Club, but poor people who are hungry, malnourished, depressed, without hope, chowing down on nutritious foods raised regeneratively from regenerative agriculture networks. That's what I'm talking about. Revolution, but a revolution of hope and a revolution of compassion. When people are eating, their bellies are fed, they're a lot less likely to go rob somebody or steal.
And a lot more likely to be able to think about the bigger picture of water quality, air quality, building community, and expanding in a sustainable way.
Amen. Hallelujah. And then we'll do it in Santa Cruz too. And it'll become a revolution. This model is so easy to replicate, but we got to start.
I'm a little confused though about the emphasis being on the cafes for the news cycle to eventually get to the...
Not eventually, the next day. Stop thinking eventually. Start thinking now.
Just to finish my plan is...
Sorry.
I know if this summer the Arctic ice is going to melt, finally caught on to that's like is being talked about, then it seems like the plan shouldn't be to have a cafe that runs hunger. The plan should be to freeze the Arctic. And I think one thing that we get caught up in is assuming the society won't consent or allow our radical idea, we don't actually finish the thought about how we actually achieve the thing we want to achieve. And so we self-limit and we kind of voluntarily diminish the power of our imagination and the potential plans and strategies that would arise out of those things. So if the plan was actually to freeze the Arctic, to get a global consensus or Bill Gates to fund, freezing the Arctic, it seems like it'd be good to focus on that for at least like 10 minutes.
Totally.
I think, I actually think like getting Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and these like the richest three guys in America and the world who are supposedly on the left side of the spectrum. I mean, if that was like literally, we have one, like 6 months or whatever, it seems like then that should be pitched and achieved in 6 months.
Yeah. Except pitching it to Bill Gates, you're pitching it to the wrong person. I worked directly with Bill Gates. I was corporate strategy manager at Microsoft. That guy is the biggest heroin addict on the planet. His heroin is called money. His flavor of heroin is money. If he doesn't see his net worth rising by tens of millions, by 10 million bucks every day, he's depressed. He's obsessed. He does not sleep. He has no peace. I worked for the man. And yeah, you can quote me. I don't give a crap. I denounce him publicly for, not doing his responsibility and just being a hoarder and destroying the planet. He's leading the charge of destroying the planet by setting the example of hoarding, 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 and then apparently dribbling out a little bit. He's giving it to his friends. He's giving it to Nathan Myhrvold, another billionaire, to work on technology for malaria. Oh, that's it. Hey, guy, if we eradicate malaria, we're set, aren't we? Right. Totally. No. The dude's, he's a heroin addict. But his flavor of heroin is money. So forget about Bill Gates.
Well, there is a money plan.
Going to Mars, money, not even worth anything if it's not planned.
Hallelujah. Look,
I was just going to say, how about as we approach design and create the cafe,
yeah,
the whole time, the whole process, information about why and what type of food and the elements involved in bringing this food to life to fill the bellies and feed the spirits of the people. That's where we're doing this massive educational outreach so that people who are getting involved, not just to eat the food, but to prepare the food,
yeah,
bring the food from where it comes, to look at how is it getting from point A to point B, what type of seed, what type of care, really look at the whole picture as we build that. And in that process, acknowledging that those ways that we choose that are sustainable or restorative ways of creating food are part of and reducing the energy consumption and the pollution are part of how we're addressing the problem of the melt.
yes,
Simultaneously building momentum for not just the awareness, but for the focus on the solution. What is the bigger, not bigger picture, but the way that we're actually going to resolve it.
And
Not
what-
just all those ways, but how we'll get technology and brilliance to come together.
Yeah.
So,
And what you're talking about, Sister Julia, is transforming the way we walk the earth and transforming our footprint on the earth
yes.
to be holistic, to be regenerative. Regenerative agriculture supplies the community cafes with food. And when people eat together, it's a lot more efficient to heat up one big pot of stew than a bunch of people in their own little McMansions with their own universe inside, refrigerators, stoves, ripping up in the...
a big quick and with your engine blazing or...
A lot of different social justice movements have done what you're saying about community, like the Black Panther Party, Ghana movement. I mean,
we're inviting them all to join us.
Absolutely. So, in 9 minutes, we need to be out of here because it's getting close to midnight. And I congratulate and thank all of us. This is a victory. This is collective intelligence. This is the beginning. We're going to go from here. In 5 weeks, we have our second dinner in the series. And we're going to be focusing on solutions. In the meantime, we're going to work together. We're going to collaborate. And we're going to use our collective intelligence to bubble up these solutions. And let's have the community cafe done by the next dinner. So we can do a press conference right here at the entrance of the Berkeley Yacht Club. Inside here, collective intelligence is happening. What are the fruits? Ending hunger, refreezing the Arctic, and a whole long list. This is just the beginning. We got to get all the dominoes to fall, but we got to start with one. And I say let's eradicate hunger in Berkeley and get the word out about refreezing the Arctic.
And another domino, as I said before, is we're working on a declaration of climate emergency. You know, if the narrative is this is our last summer, and that's what the narrative is. That's what's true, and that's what's true. But City of Berkeley functioning as a regional catalyst, we first have to get it passed in the City of Berkeley. That is also showing up to a council meeting when the agenda item comes before the council, being like, yo, speak to it. Yeah, get like 2 minutes, but
What day, what time are the council?
it hasn't been proposed yet, so I don't know what meeting it is. If there's a mailing list that's from this, if we could use that mailing list to be like, yo, this shit's coming up right now, that would be super helpful.
In Santa Cruz, I believe the county model is that anybody can speak in public minutes any Tuesday or whichever.
Yeah, that's also true.
Is that true? So, in fact, even if it's not on the agenda, people are able to get up and speak.
That's true.
Contact.
And that's much important.
Absolutely.
I just want to do my part to say
Thank you all so much.
And I don't have the Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
I love it.
I have friends in Georgia.
We'll take care of that. Does everyone have my card?
Yes.
I have my mom's card.
The other part for your because of downtown.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your cousin.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. We can totally do this.
This is melting through. They're afraid it's gonna melt through their other containment. They're just hoping they can finish it in time.
See? Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Awesome. Cheryl, that's your mother. Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Perfect. Thank you. Will you text me? Or email
Oh,
me?
yeah, I'll text you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because we got to make this happen. Did we get your card?
Yeah.
You'll contact me.
I've tried to find your website.
How do you get?
I don't.
Because I think we know.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Okay, so in other words, you put it in your browser and you get some sort of, okay, we're in the process of launching right now. So we haven't quite launched. Okay. For a private beta, but just, you can email me in the meantime, but whatever it takes, you can see it.
Is there a bunch of AI in the system? I can't even.
Not yet. Okay. We're using, right now, we're doing the conversation. Exactly this. But then all that is stored and recorded, so if you click on the email, it transcribes it, indexes it.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a good idea. Yeah, fucking AI to just advertise to us. Where it's such a lame use of time.
Totally. We're using it to bring people together. So that, you know, look at the magic that happens with our group. But anyways, I gotta go talk to the bartender. We really gotta get out of here.
Yeah, so yeah, all right, guys, let's go.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Armando. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much, Armando. And to Mom and Pa too.
All right, we gotta be out of here in 4 minutes.
All right, 4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was,
Good, I hope you do.
Are you in the city?
Yeah.
You got a car or? I don't either. So you can drive. But I was thinking I was my lift over there. Could share over there. Do that.
Hey.
So did you fly out just for this or?
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
Are these your computers or not? Or today? So you got your stuff.
I just today, yeah.
Lawrence, huh?
I'm piggybacking off of the two because basically I was great. And so oh, you did, just like me.
I don't understand how it is that we ended up here. And
I know, I was, you have no idea.
All right. Let me stop the broadcast. Thank you all for watching. Oh man, we still got 8 people watching. Thank you for watching. This is history in the making, and you're a part of it. Bless you. And keep watching and keep participating. Join the public hangouts. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.